going to really use him. I mean, drafting a fullback in the 6th round today, obviously isn't as common, and I really thought that, he's somebody that they liked. But I mean, it kind of goes like hand in hand with what you're saying. So, I want to ask you, I mean, do you feel like this position is being completely phased out of today's league?
Yeah, I think it's gone, man. I really do. I mean, I don't even. I mean, here's the deal. I'm the uniform inspector for the Rams. So I'm there on only home games, and this will be my 3rd year doing it. And the last 2 years, I've had up front, close and personal, watching not just the Rams offense, but every other offense that comes to town. And it's just there's no respect for the position. There's no need for it. It's all about throwing the football all over the yard. I hate to say this, man, to make this comparison, but it reminds me of that time in the, probably like early 90s, mid 90s, where Major League Baseball was hurting. They were having a hard time putting people in the seats. They weren't hitting home runs. And then all of a sudden, Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and all these guys start hitting home runs. You know what I mean? I think that was kind of what the NFL kind of felt the game was going towards. Like, yeah, offenses are evolving, college games changing. We need to start airing this thing out, because that's all teams do now. That's all teams do now is throw the football. I mean, rarely do you see teams run the football with a 2-back, especially a fullback back there. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 teams I can tell you that really utilize a guy like that. I think you can say is their guy. I mean, you can say Minnesota was using the guys. The Saints last year kind of used the guy, sparingly, but it's not. We're not that the days of that football where you saw a fullback in, if not every play, every other play, I think are gone. I think that there'll always be a need for the position, but it's going to be 5 to 8 snaps a game. When it comes to that Sam Rogers kid, I thought when the Rams hired Sean McVay is a West Coast guy. He comes underneath that John Gruden tree from Tampa.
Yeah.
I thought John Gruden loves a fullback. He's gonna. I mean, he signed a fullback in this offseason in free agency. He signed a kid from Dallas. I mean, he's trying to bring the position back. I thought McVay would do that, but he didn't. He's a very innovative, smart, creative coach, and he's finding other ways, to get it done without using the fullback, which is fine. I'd rather win than me be in the game. If I'm in the game and we're losing, what's the point? But overall, the position I think is gone. It really is, and it's just I think you might see every so often it gets thrown in there, but I think from team to team, year to year, it's just I don't see it coming back because where do these guys? Where does the NFL get their players from? They get them from college, and there's no fullbacks in college. There's none. I had one this year. I worked with San Diego State, Nick Bosden. He ended up getting drafted to the Detroit Lions in the 7th round. I think he was a guy that that could actually be utilized, and it was an old school type fullback. But that's one guy. That's one guy. The year before I was drafted in 2003, there was 8 fullbacks drafted in 2003. And my year there was only 3.
Took Brian Leonard in the 2nd round.
Yeah, it was Brian Leonard from the Rutgers, and 2006 the Rams. I mean, but to get back to your point, the position to me is it's just, and when I do see guys in there playing the position, like I used to tell Sam Rogers, in pregame, especially during the preseason, hey man, you need to be in the game. When you're in the game, you need to be affecting. You need to affect the game. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you need to be in there, taking linebackers' hearts, taking their will. And, you just don't need to be in there just get in the way. Like, you need to have a mindset that you go in there and your block's going to be the block that's going to spring the back. Because that's how I played. That was my mentality. I felt like every block was going to be that block that could spring Steven or Deuce or Reggie or Pierre Thomas or Aaron Stecker. all the blacks I blocked for. So I mean that's the mindset, but it's hard to have that mindset when you're not in the game as much. I was in the game a lot early in my career. I was playing 30, 40 snaps a game. My last year in St. Louis, I was playing like 8 to 10 snaps. You know what I mean? So it's hard to have that mindset. It's hard to get into that rhythm as a fullback and to be a player that can affect games when you're not in there very much. You know what I mean? But anyway, to answer your question, I just don't see it happening. I hope I'm praying that John Gruden brings it back, though. I think it'd be awesome.
No, it would be. I'm kind of I'm old school in that way. I really like the the 2-back formation. I thought I actually really like the split back formation a lot, but I really like the I formation as well. And I mean, I remember used to plow guys over for Steven, and I'm sure Steven wishes that was that was always a thing for him, because man, he had just some incredible years that just no one is going to talk about today. And I've mentioned this before a couple times throughout this Throwback Thursday, series. But I mean, what's your take on this? Because I feel as though I know everyone calls Marshawn Lynch beast mode, but Steven Jackson is the beast mode that just no one gave the respect.
Yeah, no one.
That he deserved.
I totally agree. Marshawn Lynch is Marshawn Lynch because of one run in 2011 in the playoffs up in Seattle against the Saints. He doesn't have that run, Jake. He's not considered beast mode. I mean, Steven Jackson was a consistent beast mode his whole career. He was on losing teams.
Yeah.
And his three Pro Bowls that he had, I was blocking for him for 2 of them, and Madison Hedgecock was the other one. He thrived behind a fullback, and when I left, when I was not retained after the 2010 season, he was crushed because he knew that it wasn't going to be the same, and he struggled his years out. He played 5 more years after that, but he struggled in a single back set. He didn't have the same type of years. You look at the years when Steven Jackson had a fullback in front of him, he'll tell you he had monster years. But to me, to get back to the point again, I mean, he is beast mode. Steven was a consummate professional, took impeccable shape of his body. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was a genius. How well he took care of himself. He was always ready to play, and he was going to give you everything you had, man. But I agree, beast mode, the whole beast mode thing, I'm so over it. And it to me, I just, I think it's so played into. I think it's overplayed, played into, whatever you want to say. It's overdone. And Steven Jackson was, for a long time, beast mode. I don't know why he doesn't get the same amount of attention. Maybe because he wasn't flashy and didn't eat Skittles on the sideline in between plays.
Oh my God! I want to buy you a beer right now.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? It blows my mind as well. But he had a heck of a career, man. He had a heck of a career.
Yeah. No, I always say like little things like this. Not saying that I totally agree, but and I know people are really, really into the idea of like karma. But I always say, man, if karma was real, then Steven Jackson would have a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I can't stand.
He deserved to have one. I remember when I remember in was it December of 15? Like end of November, LeGarrette Blount got hurt.
Yeah, and
he had texted me. He had texted me, "Hey man, the Patriots just called me. They want to bring me in for a workout." I'm like, "Dude, go." He's no, I'm going. I'm like, "This is your chance. This is your time." They beat the Seahawks the year before in the Super Bowl. Like they're on the cusp of going back to another one. Like you got to go. And he went, worked out, and him and Bill Belichick have always stayed in touch. Bill Belichick. I think ultimately in 2004, Bill Belichick wanted to draft Steven, but they ended up signing Corey Dillon in free agency. And so they ended up not drafting Steven, but Bill Belichick loves Steven Jackson. He always has. I remember when we played against New England, he'd always come up to Steven. and give Steven some love and, hug him and stuff. So I thought it was awesome that, Steven went there to finish his career. And, I was pulling for him in that AFC Championship game in Denver. They lost. But, I mean, if there's any running back I played for that deserves a Super Bowl ring, it's Steven Jackson, just hands down.
Yeah, just what's weird? It's almost as if, like, you talk about, like, Joe Thomas. I know Joe Thomas wasn't on winning teams, but people still, like, know for the longest time he was the most dominant left tackle, and he's one of the greats. But it's like Jackson just doesn't get that praise. And I think a lot of that is because Jackson retired. I mean, like, I don't want to say Pro Football Focus is the end-all, be-all, but it's really opened up people's eyes, at least to go back and watch the film, like, no, you're underrating this guy. Like, he's doing this, and this is why. And, like with Steven Jackson, I think, people didn't see those little things. I mean, I don't think people realize how dominant he was as a receiver. I mean, he's a 6'3" running back that was, I mean, he was really fast. I know he would get
240 pounds.
Yeah, he'd get brought down from behind, and people would look at him like, oh, he's a slower guy. But I mean, then like Garrett Blount, is like, he runs a 4.7, but everyone thinks he's like this sprinter speed guy. I don't know, but it's funny though, because
it's just kind of who the media kind of latches onto. To be honest with you,
yeah,
you know what I mean. They've latched on. They love beast mode. They love Garrett Blount. It's just it's weird. They just it never really happened for Steven for whatever reason. The media never latched onto him. I think he was that guy you're gonna look back at 30, 40 years from now and be like, dude, that guy was something else.
Yeah.
I told Steven, I used to tell Steven all the time, you're the only running back I block for where I can actually hear you behind me running. That's how much power he ran with. Like, I could hear his feet, every foot that was put in the ground, you could hear it. It was like, do, 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 do. You know what I mean? I mean, he reminds me, and people always think I'm crazy when I say this. He reminded me of a modern day Jim Brown. He was the same type of big old back who just ran with such tenacity, and was so violent and could do so much. I mean, you put Steven on another team, man, no offense to the Rams, but, if you put him in another organization like a Patriots or somewhere else, and he wins 3 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowls, he's automatically a Hall of Famer. He's going in. You know what I mean? But he was it just wasn't the case. So, but in my book, he'll be one of the best ever played with. Period.
Yeah, I hope he gets in the Hall. I mean, it's really...
It's a long shot. But I mean, it's definitely a possibility. But it's a long shot. But I think he's Hall of Fame worthy. You look at a guy like Frank Gore. Frank Gore's top 5 all-time yards. I just don't see it. Frank Gore Frank Gore is a great runner, great back, but he didn't put the fear of God in me when we played against him. I was on offense watching our defense going, this guy scares me. When I was on offense and I was out there and Steven Jackson was out there with me, I was like, dude, I feel bad for this defense. They're about to get killed. I mean, this guy's about to freaking. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just different.
I know.
It's a different way of looking at it. Like, you give Steven Jackson another 5,000 yards, and he's right in the conversation as well. But it's mind blowing.
It is. I still remember when Sheldon Brown, like, the dude hit like a missile, and he knocked Steven Jackson, like, made him go flying about 10 yards. Helmet goes flying off.
Oh yeah,
and Sheldon Brown is like flipping out, like
swing route.
Yeah. And like Steven Jackson gets up and he's just like pumped. Like, that's the he was an animal.
He picks his helmet up and puts it back on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's oh my God, it's incredible, really. And he had 7 or 8 straight seasons with 1,000 yards rushing, and that was with no help. I mean, like, he was like, imagine, he gets punished for being on a bad team, but it's like they never give him the credit